Serial Entrepreneurship. Why we continue.
Hi, everyone. There's always a little second delay on this. Thank you for sticking around for this panel. You have no idea what you're about to get involved with. These people have done it over and over again, and we're going to find out why. We all know that MedTech is also called hard tech at times, and Andreas Forslund, who was actually just up here, was talking yesterday that he actually thought he was going to build this brain-computer interface company in a 2 or 3 year stretch, and he's definitely come to the realization that he's got 10 years ahead of him at least. And so we're going to dive into some of the stories of why these brilliant entrepreneurs have not only done it once, but again and again, and find out some of those reasons what keeps them going, and also some of those pitfalls as well as those successes that got them over the line. So give a warm welcome and applause again to these serial entrepreneurs who keep on keeping on in our industry. So we're going to do some quick intros, and I think just to set the stage, talking about why you guys are serial entrepreneurs, your name, your company, your companies that you've been involved with, a little bit of back end, and we'll go down the row and take it from there. So Yusuf, please lead us.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation, and I'm really humbled by the caliber of the people on the panel. So my name is Yusuf Biadilla. I have 20 years of experience. I'm an R&D engineer, ex-Baylis Medical Toronto, Sadra Medical California, Symetis in Lausanne. All three are structural heart companies, and all three were bought by Boston Scientific. And I'm co-founder of 3 companies. One company is Anchor Orthopedics for stabilization of disc herniations. The company is commercial in the US, in Europe. Co-founder of a company called Abogen, which is a saliva diagnostic company that was bought by OraSure, which is a big publicly traded company in the US and the leader in saliva diagnostics. And presently focused as a CEO of a Valletta, which is a clinical stage obesity company.
Thank you. Annalisa?
Hi, my name is Annalisa Samara, CEO and co-founder of Reos. Reos is based in Chicago, Illinois. We are developing this wearable skin sensor that I have here in my hand. We can detect flow beneath the surface of the skin. So when I say flow, think of things like blood, lymph, and in the case of our first indication, cerebrospinal fluid or CSF in shunted hydrocephalus patients. So I lead the team of about 20 as employee number 1, and I licensed the technology from Northwestern University in 2019. So I'm here on the stage because I've been working with early stage companies, primarily medical devices, for 20 years, wearing many hats. Early stage VC, where I co-managed a life science portfolio. I worked in tech transfer and played senior management roles in a number of companies, leading finance, regulatory, operations, quality, that sort of thing. And my specialty is in the very, very early stage. I'm talking no CEO, no money type companies. And I love building the baby companies.
Thank you. Daniel Hawkins?
My name is Daniel Hawkins. I've been in the MedTech space now 31 years. Started in large MedTech, and as quickly as I could, I went early. Ended up in medication dispensing and found my way to Intuitive Surgical when there was all of 5 people, plus Fred Mull. So I helped in the early stages of Intuitive and set the specs on the Da Vinci robot with Fred. Went on to be involved in a number of companies, varying levels, ultimately to co-founding a company in the insulin delivery space. It was called Calibra Medical. It was acquired by J&J. That was since divested, and it became a company called Secure. I also invented intravascular lithotripsy and started Shockwave Medical, ran that for about 5.5 years after incubating it for 3. And then started a company called Avail Med Systems, ran that for 7 years. That's an interesting story. That one didn't go very well. And recently took over a company called Vista AI, and we're focused on using artificial intelligence to enable MRI technologists to create exams very quickly, very efficiently, and improve not only the quality but all the throughput of MRI image acquisition. Starting in cardiac, and will be in multiple anatomies within about 18 months. Why do I keep doing this? We'll end up chatting about it, but my specialty mostly is focused on unmet medical needs, and disruption is what is really what I focus mostly on.
Thank you. Amir?
Thank you all for joining us today. Like Yusuf, I'm more than humble to be in this panel. Fantastic people, great experience. Myself, Amir Gross, also 20 years of real professional experience in the MedTech, but if I go back, while I was a student, I was doing similar things as you mentioned. It's a family business, basically. My father started, so running errands for my father as a student, companies without CEO, companies with no funding, companies really, literally from scratch. So this is the most fun part. I totally agree. I co-founded 4 companies, actually. 2 of them were very successful, exited in 2016, 2021. 2 of them failed. I'm trying to stay humble, but the 2 failed. I didn't manage them, and I was asked not to interfere. So in my next rounds, I'm going to manage or interfere. So then I will be more successful. I'm working now on 2 stealth mode startups in the structural heart business, so stay tuned for that. Looking forward for this chat today because I don't want to lie. I'm asking the same question quite often, but I have good answers for that, by the way.
So then let's stay there, and I'm going to cheat because we had a CEO-only event yesterday of which all of us were here. And you actually mentioned the specific example when you sold Valletta Cardio, we'll call it on a Friday, you showed up the next day and started running CardioValve. And it doesn't take anyone more than a couple fingers to look up what happened with Valletta Cardio and the exit that you went through. Very successful. I mean, I say Mai Tais, but it could be any kind of drink. I mean, after you celebrate this company, you've worked for so long, people who watch Netflix and all these shows have this vision of grandeur. You sell your company and you just disappear. You buy the house that you want, you buy the cars that you want, you go vacation, you never see anybody again, but you showed up to work the next day. That takes a certain individual to do that. My question is why?
Okay, good question. I'll try to answer. First of all, I was on a momentum, and in a way, I was like in a running wheel, you know? I couldn't stop. Secondly, I value the investors' money very much. I value the investors' money more than I even thought, because the day I sold CardioValve, I slept like a baby because I sent back, because the original investors of Valtech, they were also investors in CardioValve. I felt I owed them back the money at fullest for both opportunities. So I had to continue. Although one of the investors told me, Amir, take 3 months off. What you're doing? I don't want to sign on no checks. I said, you're crazy, we have milestones from Edwards. Let me bring them. I want to bring I want to chew the steak. What's happening to you? Let me finish with that. Maybe I should have listened to him, but the morning after, I appeared in the office. He was the chairman. Okay, I will not lie. He didn't want to sign on the checks. I flew to Boston and said, take the 3 months. What's going on with you? Are you brain dead? I refused. I had fights with him. He said, no, I'm not signing the checks. I said, but we have commitments. He said, I could care less. So thank God I have friends. I took off because I was on the carb side with 20 employees the day after Valtech, which we need to move on for CardioValve. I was literally on the carb side. So I went from a guy I know and gave me an office. it was a bit surreal. Now after, I'll go back. I hope I tried to answer why I did it the day after, but you probably want to understand why I continue. So why I continue, I keep asking myself, to be honest. I did try, as I mentioned yesterday, who have been in the panel, in this August. I took 10 days, went with my family to my favorite place, Mykonos, and I told my wife and my daughter, there's one mission this vacation, that in this vacation, I'm taking the decision that I'm becoming a farmer, okay? And I'm doing everyday activity with my family, just thinking about me becoming farmer. And actually, I'm all day riding jet skis there, having fun in the water, but I need to rest sometimes. I rest on the sunbed, and I get flash news, because I'm from Israel, I get flash news. And Israel is a small country like Malta. J&J acquired V-Wave for 1.7 billion, and V-Wave is a shunt. I told my wife and daughter, we are packing, no farmer, boom. Because you get a rush of adrenaline again, and that's all. I'm very competitive, okay? I play to win. And the problem with this business that it's very addictive. I'm sure Daniel will say the same, very, very addictive. And I'm doing no drugs, okay, guys, no drugs. But
Today.
the dopamine that you get, okay, from bringing happiness to those families, the adrenaline you get from a successful animal work or bad animal work, the adrenaline you get from a successful team that you see, you get so addicted to that you literally can't stop. And I try to stop. Trust me, I try. I drive to the office sometimes saying, what the hell, are you crazy? And you continue doing it. And now we're co-founding two new companies, going to raise a few millions. What the hell are you doing? I'm writing also my own checks. Those checks I can give my daughter for future life, you know? He took his kids' university, college, whatever funds. I feel sometimes I'm doing the same. I give some guy in Israel a 250, 500 check because I believe in him and give it to my daughter. So it's quite addictive.
So Joseph, I'm going to toss you over a question, so think about. But before we do that, Daniel, I'm actually going to spoil it, and I want to have you give your own definition. In 2021, you and I did a podcast together, and at the time you were with Avail, and I asked you a very similar question about being a serial entrepreneur. And your response was, I have a responsibility. And I just want to know what that means to you.
Sure. So I have a fundamental belief that you get so many scars when you're doing this that after a while you're walking scar tissue, right? But you've learned a lot. And when you've learned a lot, it is a duty to pass that on in some respect. Okay, there are a variety of ways to do that. Investment is one. Doing your own is the greatest form of pathology, but also contribution, right? I also advise companies. I advise entrepreneurs, not because I'm going to take the company over, but because my scars shouldn't be theirs. We have an ability to do this. And therefore, we have a responsibility to do it, because if we don't, who will? Not to say we're the only ones, but to say we've been through it and have learned enough that we can shorten the timeline, increase the propensity for outcome. We can improve medicine. And, you know, I've been blessed in my career to be part of an effort that created robotic surgery. I'll never forget when I was asked to name the product and name the company while I'm setting specs and doing First in Man with Fred. That's a lot for somebody who, mind you, is not an engineer, not a clinician, never been in the OR standing up, and I'm doing that. That's weird, but I learned a lot. During that time period, I had a scalpel thrown at me by a surgeon who refused to let robotics in his OR. He was the third one to buy one. So, it just, you change clinical minds and you move medicine. 50 venture capitalists said no to Shockwave. What was discussed a moment ago, I used my kids' college fund to buy the IP when the incubator shut down the company that we were trying to start. And then I told my wife. Not very wise, wrong order. But you get passionate about these things, and what's a little strange is that it is a dopamine high when you go through a First in Man or what have you. It is very addicting. It's actually an interview question of mine. When you go to the amusement park, what's your favorite ride? If the answer is not a roller coaster, chances are you don't belong in my company. Right? Because it's controlled chaos, right? There's a thrill to the safe danger. And sometimes it's not so safe. Sometimes it's really dangerous. But we have a responsibility to improve. And when you have opportunity to meet people who are touched by what you've done on an airplane, maybe it's your partner. My partner had shockwave done on him and sent me a note saying it went well. It's extraordinary, and that is something that you can't let go of. I can't.
And Amir, you touched on ego a little bit here. Success can obviously change people. Success comes in different forms, whether that's financial, whether it's notoriety, whether it's the name in an article. How do you continue to manage the ego as you continue to be successful, continue to grow, and keep that in check?
Very easily, because in my opinion, my success, okay, and people can believe or not, I'm an egoless guy. And if someone will say that I've changed a bit, please come forward and tell me that. I can tell you that I've done 2 exits for a fund from Israel. They made a career out of these 2 exits. Giovanni knows who I'm talking about. We had a call a few months ago on another business we're trying to do now. And the guy spoke in a nasty way. I wrote him, hey, dude, what's going on with you? We sold 2 companies. I didn't change. Why did you change? What's going on with you? Hey, relax a bit. So I didn't change a bit. My family, my friends will witness, my employees will witness. I stayed humble. I live where I lived before. I drive the car I drove before. I just bought a newer one, but I drive the same car. I didn't do any crazy stuff, so to speak. Trying to be normal, to make my family stay normal. Really, literally, not for, as far as I feel and other tells me, I didn't change, and I'm happy about it. I don't think I need to change.
Thank you. Annalise, I want to toss this one over to you, because you and I had some good conversation.
I will continue for a moment, okay? There's one thing about the ego, okay, so about the responsibility. I'll go to the responsibility and to your ego. One of the companies I'm co-founding now is a responsibility, because one of my top employees doesn't want to continue work in our company. He wants to spread his wings, which he deserves. So he tells me, this idea we never did. Let's carve it out. I will run it. If I say no, I'm an asshole. If I say yes, now he's an engineer. If I say yes, now I need to bring $5–10 million. Shit. Now comes the ego. You raised 150 plus. You did 2 exits, and now you need to go raise some peanuts in a way. And now you need to rent a room. You have, I don't know to translate it, but I have now almost 3,000 square meters in Israel. And now we're going to take us 30 meters. So it's like a toilet room. This will be our office. So in this, it's not the ego, but in this you say, okay, you need to go back, a bit backwards. But I had an interesting call with Doug Gottschalk, as I mentioned yesterday. 2 weeks ago, I said, Doug, what do you say? He said, listen, Amir, I sold in hardware for 200+ million. Because we know a pump was a few million, so it's not that hard also to sell for 200+. The first year of Shockwave, we had 2 million. How do you think I felt? How do you think I felt? And he told me I might gonna do it again after I sold for 13 billion. So relax, take the 30-meter toilet room, and off you start again. So this is part of the responsibility to this top engineer. The ego, it's there. I felt it a bit. Oh, now from an empire, I'm going to a small room. This was a bit of a part of ego, but I've never ego in front of people, or I'd never treat in an ego way people, or stuff like that.
Thank you. Annalise, I want to throw it over to you. You and I had this conversation, but you're very mission and patient driven. And talk about that, because you've done this time and time again, like you were mentioning in your career, but then fast forward it to what you're doing now, and what is driving you, especially because MedTech is not easy.
It's not. It's definitely not for the faint of heart. I've been involved with over 10 startup companies, and this one feels a little different. It's not because I'm leading it, but it's because of the patients that we can have an impact on. So when I first joined this company, I licensed technology, like I said, out of Northwestern. There was no management team, but they were in a clinical trial. And I was talking to one of the co-founders, and he said, I want you to join, but I want you to accompany me to the hospital and meet one of the patients. And I said, sure, no problem. I wasn't sure if Rayos was the company for me at that moment, but it was when I interacted with the patient and the patient's mom where I knew that it was the company for me. So when I joined Rayos, I just had my second baby. I closed on my newly built house, and I was entering a company that had $0. So a lot of chips stacked up against me, and I knew that if this company didn't take off and fail, then I could just go back to what I was doing. I joined another startup. So when I went to the clinic and met the patient and their mom, she told me that the mom told me, like, I'm so glad that you are working on this, because this device can have such an impact on my daughter who had who's missed months and months of school. And it was at that moment where I'm like, okay, she got me. Like, it was just, as a mom, that really resonated with me. And I said, I'm gonna build this. I'm gonna make it, even though I'm employee number one and there's no money in the bank account, I'm gonna do this because she's a mom and I'm a mom and I feel her. So, it was that moment where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna gather up some folks that I worked with at other startups, and I called up a couple people. The first one was someone named Adam that I worked with. I said, hey, Adam, I want you to join me at Rayos. There's no money, but I promise you it's gonna be great. And fast forward, 5 years later, we have 20 people on the team, over $20 million in financing, about to start selling our product in a couple months. And it's really the patients and the parents that continue to fuel me and fuel the rest of my team.
Congratulations on the upcoming commercialization, by the way. And by the way, Amir, I've been to your office. It's a beautiful office. I love it, by the way. And also the one that you're building, too. Joseph, I'm going to throw you another question, but before that I want to get to Yusuf, because you are the hardcore engineer, and I've known you for a long time, and you are the hardcore engineer on this panel. And you've gone from company to company, built company from company to company, and now you're running Valletta. Does the mind ever stop as an engineer and as a serial entrepreneur? Is there ever going to be an end, or is it just this, how to fix things and you have that engineering mind, and to your last dying day, are you going to be thinking about how to change healthcare?
So just if I look back, the part that I really like is that finding a solution to technical risk and clinical risk, and during that time you kind of oscillate between the thrill of proving a lot of people wrong. We hear 99, this is stupid, and 1, yeah, this may work. And when it works, like, what a thrill. I mean, that's worth years and years of hard work. But you're also oscillating between that, the thrill, and the fear of losing people's money. And Abogen, which was really tough diagnostic company, was really hard when it comes to that, because you're struggling with money all the time. You know how diagnostics, saliva diagnostics is really hard to finance versus therapeutics, because it's very hard to put, value in the value chain. So that was really hard. But you're oscillating between these two all the time. You don't really have time to think about, I certainly didn't have time to think about my ego in the last 20 years, because you're always oscillating between these two. And the fact that you have to face so many difficulties really keeps you humble. At least it does. But in terms of the rest, I don't see myself as a commercialization person. I fired myself at Anchor Orthopedics. When we got into commercialization, we got a great team. And the way I see it is just I would rather have a small piece of a bigger pie than just stay and ruin it because I'm not a sales guy. And I feel the same with biotech. Once we get close to commercialization, we're gonna put a team in place, and I'll go do something else.
If I could add something very quickly to that. You'd asked the question of whether or not your mind is always going. I am 100% guilty of that. One of the key points of advice I find myself giving to entrepreneurs is to try to learn about their patents and what they're trying to solve. And I'd imagine you suffer from some version of this. You automatically think, oh, there's another way to do that. You could do it this way. Have you thought about this? And it's, from my perspective, to try to optimize the result, minimize the risk, shorten the pathway, shorten the economics, but very importantly, eliminate the patent issues, right? So yesterday evening, I won't reveal who this was, but an entrepreneur came to me, we started talking about it, and I said, well, have you looked over in this sector? Because they did this with that. It's very similar, different enough perhaps, but look at their patents, because I'm aware of this, 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 and this. You could get around it by doing this, and that's just how the mind works. It drives my family crazy, but that's some of what, at least in my case, I definitely suffer from.
A lot of sleepless nights.
I want to give one more anecdote. I feel that we're a bit criticized. Oh, those guys were successful. Why they're not drinking the cocktail in Mykonos and they're continuing to run after the bloody pigs and so on. But I'll give two examples, okay? Michael Jordan is a professional guy, right? Professional sportsman. He probably retired because of his knees or rather the age, But professional singer, they never retire, okay? Because they can go on and on and on and on. We don't have the limit that we need to retire as long as our brain function and we're able to create new companies, able to raise new funds. We're professional, we continue. So, we know in Europe, in US it's maybe less, in Europe you can see a bartender, 70 years old, working in the same bar since he was 20. He is committed. 50 years of career as a bartender in this old, nice place in Spain or Italy. So I think we're committed people in the end of the way. That's all, probably. Professional, committed people.
And you have inspiration because your father still hasn't hung it up either.
Yes, unbelievable.
Take it, Joseph.
No, but he's rich in a different way, I must say, okay? People often, I think, have a mistake with my dad, okay? My dad is an artist. He's not scientist, although he's a scientific guy, he's an engineer and so on. He's more artist than scientist, because when you wake up in the morning, he's sketching a new patent, like an artist is sketching a new paint, and then he shows me and said, look, what beautiful. I said, are you crazy? This is 500 patient study, PMA, $150 million first round, trust me. I said, so what, what's the problem? And I banged my head on the wall, because for him it's nothing, because someone like me, or Daniel, or Yusuf, or the nice lady here will go and do it. So he could care less. He's an artist.
And you guys have talked about now mission and with why you joined. Yusuf, you've talked with us many times about the successes of the patients, and that's a driving factor. You guys just talked about duty. From the other side, for first-time entrepreneurs here, you guys have been through, you said you're walking scar tissue, basically. Does that get easier the more success you have, or how do you learn to deal with it better? Or do you just become numb to it and it becomes part of the day-to-day job? I guess walk us through the challenging part there.
At least in my case, I'll say the only part that gets easier is that you recognize what's coming at you earlier and have some experience in handling, I'll say, the easier ones. I described at a conference earlier this year that you can see headwinds, you can feel tailwinds, but MedTech is known for sidewinds. When the sidewinds arrive, they can be a surprise. They can be a little breeze or they can be a tsunami. And you can't always see sidewinds. I don't know about you guys, but.
If I could just add, I think over time, you just become more nimble. You can adjust a lot quicker. Your freak out moment time is less, And then also over time, your network has grown. So if you're in a bind, you know exactly who to call.
Very true.
You're like, okay, you're in trouble with reimbursement. I'm gonna call this person. I'm in trouble with regulatory. I know exactly who to call. And it's only those that have like scar tissue, you know, who have that Rolodex.
Completely agree. It's a total roller coaster. And after you're doing this roller coaster so many times, I would say not nimble only, also numb, okay? Now, nothing can hurt you, okay? You become a bit more numb. I remember I was much younger. A TVT meeting, the chairman of the board arrived to see what's happening in this world. And I tell him, hey, we must close this round. I have no money in the bank. Soon I will not have money in the bank. He said, how much you have? I said, you know, maybe for 1 more month. And he calls the waiter, bring us the most expensive champagne. We're celebrating. You have money for 1 more month. I said, hey, relax. 1 more month is a long time. I said, what the hell, this crazy guy? But now I feel the same. This new venture that I'm working on, the guy is so stressed. I said, what you're stressed about? We have almost $1 million in the bank. Relax. You're spending nothing. Relax. When you have $20,000, let's talk that you're stressed. Now, relax. But I remember when I was young, I was also stressed when you could see the wall coming. So you become not only nimble, also a bit more numb. Nothing can hurt you. Yeah. Resilient.
I definitely agree. To me, like the positives and the negatives. So the negatives, the stress, the fear, you just get used to the pain. It's a bit like, you know, doing abs every morning. You know, the first time you do 20, it really hurts. You can't even breathe. But then after that, you start doing the same, you know, and you're used to that pain, and you can now breathe through that pain. To me, it's the same. However, the thrill, you know, it stays high. You don't get used to the thrill.
You never do, ever.
I think I described it nicely. We get the dopamine from the happiness we bring to those patients. And we get the adrenaline from the day-to-day roller coaster. And this is very addictive. Dopamine and adrenaline, they're very addictive substance. And I think this is how I feel most of the day.
Piggybacking off of that as well then, the addiction of being a CEO or an executive, especially when you have successes, it can keep driving you back. You also hit on the network as well. Does that keep pulling you back in? Because you mentioned trying to farm a little bit. You see one thing, and sometimes it could be the network also saying, hey, you would be great for this, or can you come look at that, and all of a sudden you just get the itch that you just can't scratch until you're back into the game?
I think it was stated well in, was it The Godfather? Every time you try to leave, they pull you back in. That's exactly what happens in my case. I swore I wasn't going to do another one, and then I'm here doing another one. Yes. And my guess is it won't stop.
So, an employee or a team member versus someone who's at the helm and done this over and over again, this notion of quitting. We're all human beings at the end of the day. We all have off days, we all have amazing days, but there's just these days that sometimes you just you're done. Like you feel like you hit that, you're done. How do you manage yourself when you just want to walk away? And what keeps you from not walking away?
I can take that one. I can take that one first. You know, again, I think, you know, the patience. When I'm having a really hard day, I think about the patience. But I also think about my daughter. And I also think about the other little girls who love science, who want to be a boss one day. And I say, I can't quit. I can't quit for them because there are not many of us out there. I'm not exactly on your CEO bingo card, right? I mean, look at me, I'm not. So I have to push each day so hard so I can inspire my daughter and her friends who want to be a CEO too one day.
I'd say in my case, it is a responsibility to the patients, certainly. But when somebody joins my team, I'm actually honored that they're renting part of their career to me. So I feel like I have an obligation for an economic return, obviously, not just compensation, but equity. And then I owe them my best so that they can be their best, and their CV should be better when they leave for whatever reason than when they arrived. And I have a responsibility to investors in the same way, that, you know, if there's 100,000 in the bank, I'll spend my own 100 before I'll spend theirs. Even though I'm on a company that's burning $2.4 million a month for Shockwave, I was traveling in the back of the bus going to Europe on 11-hour flights because I'm not going to spend their money that way, right? It's just a sense of responsibility and a mission to solve the problem that you started out to solve. And if you're not drinking your own Kool-Aid, like I said yesterday, that you're reading the indications properly, you can't stop. You literally, it's like stopping breathing. How do you do that? You can't. You just have to see it through. And it is, honestly, it's pathology to a level, right? Because you're self-abuse to a result, but it's addictive. And for me, it's addictive because of the difference that can get made, right? I mean, I share the same.
I want to give another comment. Yesterday panel, I said how fortunate we are. And I still believe in it since yesterday. We're very fortunate, nothing changed. And I think the reason that we're so fortunate we're dealing in this business, I never had the day that you just mentioned, to be honest. I did had maybe 2 hours that I was frustrated with some, sorry for a stupid investor that couldn't understand why we work on mitral and tricuspid and not an aortic valve. I said, but we raised money for this purpose. You never listen to the board meetings? We are working on mitral, not an aortic. So stupid things can make you upset, but never from the employees or never from the patients or the results or the physicians you work with. I found that I had a bad day only from people who are involved in the business but don't understand the business, which are not educated investors. This was the frustrating moment that I felt.
And my final question, and Joseph, if you have another one, take it home. But I'm going to direct it at Daniel. If anyone wants to jump in, please do. I think it's the one question that everyone in the audience who's currently a first-time founder wants to know. On your next company and your following company, does raising capital get easier?
It would be a lie to say it doesn't. Okay, so there's credibility that comes with the experience, because a sophisticated investor sees your scars and they recognize, if they've done their work, that the story that got you to the success that would help it be easier has moments, right? So on the other side of Shockwave, can I get a phone call returned? Usually in about 5 minutes. So that part's easier. Can I get the credibility of this is interesting? 100% that's easier. But that gets you the conversation. It doesn't get you the result. So at the end of the day, if it's a terrible project, you're not going to get the money. It doesn't matter who it is. But your credibility is immediately an entry ticket to a conversation that takes months to get otherwise, or you might not get. Even blind reach outs are easy now, candidly. So I worry less about, can I raise the money? I worry almost exclusively about, who do I raise it from? And are these people I want to work with, that are like-minded, share my vision, share the mission, and have the timeline ahead of them to be able to see it all the way through? So from that perspective, yes, but the project still stands on its own.
I echo that completely. Completely. It would be a lie to say yes. Okay, it would be a lie. Completely agree with every word. I wouldn't say it better.
I'd say my last question I'll ask you, Annalisa, because we have a lot of first-time executives talk about how lonely it can be at the top. You're purposely putting yourself in that situation. How do you manage that?
A couple different ways, I think about, what inspires me, what motivates me. Again, it comes down to the patients, their families, our different stakeholders, our investors, the clinicians that I have become even friends with over the past, 5 years. But, it can be lonely, really just being a CEO, but I think just building a network of those different stakeholders along the way can make things feel less lonely.
I want to add, don't be lonely. Just pick up the phone, call me or anyone around this panel. Seriously, don't be lonely. This is I tell everyone that approaches me, the loneliness is terrible. To be in the top, the CEO, is terrible. The investors don't understand you. Sometimes the employees don't understand you. You're somewhere stuck in the middle. Very lonely, very difficult. Just pick up, don't even text, don't email, just call. That's all, easy.
And I'll steal your words and find a mentor.
Yes.
Find a mentor.
Yes.
Everyone, please give a round of applause for these serial entrepreneurs so they do it at least one more time. Thank you so much.